concerns are about Tripoli and the West, where access is extremely difficult because of the security situation, where, for example, you have many Egyptians who are wanting to come out and are not able to do so, but also migrant workers from sub-Saharan African countries who are also stuck in countries. So opening up access on the West is very, very important for us. We want to see the violence stop. There are reports that between 600 and 2,000 people have already been killed in Tripoli. We don't know the absolute accurate numbers because we haven't got people there who are able to do assessments and tell us what is going on. But we're seeing some horrific pictures of what is happening, and we really want to be able to go in to help people in their time of need.
And what about those fleeing the country? What should be done for them, and what do you say to those countries, not only around Libya, but perhaps in Europe too, about opening their borders?
Well, over 100,000 people have fled through border crossings into Egypt and into Tunisia. We have people, the UN agencies, the Red Crescent Society and others that are operating there and are supporting people. Egypt and Tunisia have made it clear they will keep their borders open, but European Union countries also need to do the same thing. And we've seen about 1,000 people flee into Niger. We think those numbers will go up too, so we hope the Nigerian authorities will also keep their borders open. These are people who desperately need our help.
Could you describe for us the efforts that have been made so far, to your knowledge, what aid groups have actually managed to get into Libya and those who are on the border, and how you will cooperate together to make this effort work?
Well, for example, WHO, the World Health Organization, ICRC, and an organization called Médecins Sans Frontières have already gone into Benghazi on the east. What they are saying to us is that there is some shortage of medical supplies, but the situation is beginning to return to normal over there. But on the west side, the border with Tunisia, we're seeing rising numbers of people fleeing across that border. The Tunisian authorities are working in partnership with us, but it is really important that we get more access to people on the west side of Libya, and of course Tripoli remains of significant concern.
And what about security?
The World Food Programme is, just one other thing, the World Food Programme is working to ensure that we pre-position stock so that we have food aid. With respect to security, the reports are that there are thousands and thousands of members of militia groups operating in Tripoli, but these are difficult numbers to verify.
All right, Valerie Amos, we do appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for that, and I do apologise again for butting in there, but you'll understand the importance of hearing from the White House. We appreciate that. Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Valerie Amos, thanks a lot. Okay, that's it. Ban Ki-moon in Washington right now. We're expecting to hear from him a little later this afternoon. Bring you more on that as and when we get it. For now, it's back to Doha.
Nick, thanks very much indeed for that. So just to bring you up to date with the latest coming out of Libya, you might find this interesting. Colonel Muammar Gaddafi has been doing an interview with British and American journalists. Apparently he said that his people would die to protect him. He denied that there had been any protests in Tripoli, and he laughed at the suggestion that he would leave Libya, and he said he felt betrayed by leaders who had urged him to leave. Now that comes after news that there has been a protest in Tripoli. According to a Libyan newspaper, pro-Gaddafi forces had opened fire on protesters and there have been several deaths. We are working to confirm that, and of course international pressure on Gaddafi to go mounting. Stay with us, back in a minute.
14 competing teams, 13 different venues, 3 host nations. Cricket is part of the fabric of life here, and this competition is the pinnacle of the one-day game. We'll be bringing you all the action and reaction from India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The Cricket World Cup on Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
It's an astonishing moment.
We are globally yours.
Colonel Gaddafi's brutal attacks on his own people are unacceptable and will not be tolerated.
Ratcheting up the pressure against Libya, the US tells Muammar Gaddafi to surrender power now. Hello there, I'm Shuli Ghosh and you're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up on the programme, the son of the Libyan leader says it's calm in the capital, but news of protesters on Tripoli streets say otherwise. Banned from travel and his assets seized. Egypt's top prosecutor makes a move on ousted President Hosni Mubarak. And Tunisia is still in turmoil as another 2 ministers from the caretaker government resign following a weekend of deadly protests. The European Union has approved wide-ranging sanctions on Libya, including an arms embargo, a visa ban and a freeze on assets. The mounting international pressure on Muammar Gaddafi comes as anti-government protesters are reportedly moving closer to his stronghold in the capital, Tripoli. There are increasing fears over what military action the Libyan leader could take as his opponents close in. Lawrence Lee reports.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that if a town only half an hour from Tripoli is in the hands of protesters with tanks, then the end must surely be near. Yet the days drift by, momentum ebbs and flows, and for the time being Gaddafi's regime has enough to avoid falling to the people's uprising. Given the routine way in which Gaddafi's armed forces have been switching allegiances over the last few days, one of the questions that keeps being raised is how are the Gaddafis maintaining a fighting force? Up until now, the chief spokesman for Gaddafi has been his son, Saif al-Islam. He has routinely accused the media of lying about the fighting, maintaining Libya is entirely at peace with itself.
The point that you are hearing rumors, false reports, please take your camera tomorrow morning, even this night, go to every city in Libya. Everything is calm, everything is peaceful.
And yet this has now emerged. The same man, semi-automatic in hand, exhorting people to fight for his father.
I'm here to raise your morale. They are spreading rumours that our police and security forces are joining the hooligans. It's not true. Today we'll show them that the police are siding with Libya. I'm bringing you reinforcements, resources, food, weapons, everything you need.
Discounting the irony that Saif al-Islam Gaddafi has warned about the prospects of civil war while seeming to arm a militia is the question of the extent of Gaddafi's regular military forces. This is the Bainin air base, said to be one of the most important in the country. The military here say they've joined the uprising.
The whole base responded to my call to join the People's Revolution. We have great staff. As military personnel, we want to be clear that this is not a military coup. We are not leading anything. This is a people's revolution led by the youth. Our role is to protect and support it. That's our main aim.
While the Gaddafis offer arms to civilians, their former army in eastern Libya has left behind a fearsome arsenal, now in the hands of the insurgency. They say they're trying to look after it in case children get their hands on it. It also promises to provide them with a massive buffer against a Gaddafi fight back. So the east of the country does now appear far more stable, and attempts are being made to suggest a country after Gaddafi. But there's still nervousness about a civil war, not least among poor migrant workers who, many days after their bosses, are finally getting out.
Here is facing war and here is going on war, so we are afraid, everybody is afraid here, what maybe we can die.
Away from the headline towns, it appears that little places are quietly realigning themselves, and in a small country that could be genuinely significant. This Facebook video is said to be from Zintan, southwest of Tripoli, near the Tunisian border. Enough men with arms here to protect a fuel convoy. And this video, also from Facebook, is from a tiny-looking place called Kakla al-Jabal. They raise the flag of protest here unnoticed, but it's another community lost to Gaddafi. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Now, it's not just the European Union that's upping the ante. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told the UN Human Rights Council that Gaddafi had to go. And now China and Russia have added their voices, calling for the Libyan leader to be prosecuted for war crimes. Nick Spicer has this report from Geneva.
Behind the concern and outrage, there was also a certain level of surprised satisfaction here on Monday. Without a single voice of dissent, the Human Rights Council had asked for Libya to be suspended and ordered an international investigation into the crackdown.
The international community is speaking with one voice, and our message is unmistakable. These violations of universal rights are unacceptable and will not be tolerated.
Even the countries who usually put state sovereignty over human rights lined up in agreement over the weekend, approving sanctions against Colonel Gaddafi and his entourage, as well as possible prosecution for war crimes.
And so, to Colonel Gaddafi, we say this: the Libyan people are saying go, the people of the Arab world are saying go, the peoples of the entire world are saying go, and for the sake of humanity, go now.
But if there is rare diplomatic unity over Libya, there is also recognition that much more needs to be done, that this is also a humanitarian crisis. The head of the International Red Cross told AlJazeera that some of the elementary rules of armed conflict are not being followed.
We have seen that. We have credible report about ambulances being used to carry weapons or things like that, and that's a very major concern, because I think we think that's a question of life and death. Medical staff, ambulances need to be respected. They need to be able to do their work. It's not the case so far in Libya, especially not in the western part of Libya. And I really call to every people involved in violence to be able to really allow us to do our work and to allow all humanitarians to do their work in Libya. That's very important.
The U.S. is pushing Europe to take a lead role in the crisis, and the EU on Monday agreed to apply the UN sanctions. There is a recognition as well that the humanitarian and refugee crisis developing in Libya could affect Europe.
We're trying to respond in real time to the crisis and, of course, to avoid the civil war that we fear, and making contingency plans to respond to the potential flow of refugees to neighbouring and to European countries.
Sanctions and rhetoric, however rapid, will only take the world so far. Already some are saying military action may be needed, a far bigger challenge if the international community is to stay united. Nick Spicer, AlJazeera, Geneva.
Well, Hoda Abdelhamid is in the city of Benghazi, the opposition stronghold. Hoda, a lot of talk about what the international community should do with Libya. What do people there want it to do?
Well, certainly they're very happy about hearing all the condemnations coming from all over the world, but they certainly do want more. I don't think you want anyone to have a military intervention here in the country. They don't want to see any foreign soldiers. They're very proud in saying that this is a Libyan uprising and they want to finish it themselves. But they would like to see the imposition of a fly zone sooner rather than later, and that's for two specific reasons. One, it will impede the regime to carry out aerial bombardment if it decided to do so, and the other side, it will also impede the regime to fly in mercenaries all along this uprising. There's been many accusations and actually proof that the regime has flown in some African nationals, mainly from Chad, who have fought along the Gaddafi loyalists and have been quite brutal. So that would be the one thing, the one concrete step they would really like the international community to do. They would also like the international community to reach out to the opposition here in Benghazi, this National Council, which is really at its beginnings, but to sort of establish some sort of contact with them. Now, as we understand it, there has been some sort of indirect contact, and as we understand it, it has been done through the senior diplomats based in the United States who had actually switched sides.
Hoda, we're getting reports that there's been gunfire in Tripoli, that there's been a gathering of several thousand protesters and they've been fired upon by pro-Gaddafi forces. We're also getting reports that there are some